So there were no comments to the last installment of Finally Replying to Old Comments, and you know what that means. It means that part 13, the last installment, is the second perfect video to be uploaded to this channel after The Smartest Monster Part 3, which also had no comments, because it was perfectly, nothing needed to be added to it, produced, and said everything that needed to be said, presented everything that needed to be presented. You wouldn't bring a hammer and chisel to Michelangelo's David. You wouldn't bring your paints and palette to the Mona Lisa. And there was no need to add any comments to The Smartest Monster Part 3 or Finally Replying to Old Comments Part 13. So I'm up to 2 perfect videos for this channel. And that is how a grown man disappears into a world of delusion to protect his ego. So moving on to comments that were left to less than perfect videos. Where we left off was part 7 of His Master Plan Revealed. And Sonia Marie Alves de Mello said, details on babysitter interview. Did she saw the kids awake, or was they already tucker in, parentheses dead, in bed? They did not have any pizza in theirs stomach. I don't know. I have not looked that far into it because when that detail became known to me, it did not matter whether or not it didn't change everything that Chris did. It didn't like undo everything Chris said, all the lies to protect himself, all the truths that came out. I know there's the conspiracy theorists who want to say that other people might have been involved, and I'm thinking you might be implying that the babysitter and the babysitter's family are involved there. But I haven't seen enough evidence for it, so I can't entertain the idea. And then Sonia left another longer comment. And Sonia Marie Alves de Mello, you're probably long gone by now and you've moved well on to other channels and other subjects with your comments. But if you want a better reply from me on the off chance that you do, please come back and edit these so they're understandable. I think they would be easier to understand if you just completely wrote them in your native language instead of translating to English. Because I'm going to read this accurately to how it's written here and then try to reply. Sonia Marie Alves de Mello's longer comment was, listen to ter babysitter interview, the most dalt, straightforward answers, parentheses, she meant sham. Nick asked what glamour pizza I wish, end of parentheses. So Nick das in the house that night prior to go out. The kids did not era any pizza, parentheses, report autopsy. So they could already be tucked in bed pretty dead. If the babysitter check and saw them dead, she would be blamed. If Nick das in the house, Nick could have killed the kids. In a way, set the motion quietly for him to kill Shanann. Why on hell she had some mensengens delighted if she had nothing to rid. It was a serious crime. Anyone innocente would delete anything once the police already knew about the affair. CD has not told the true. Bella haircut so horrible sort months before. Could be already parte of the plan. Hairs could block the flow of the oil. Though pumps, etc., etc. Bella hair was cut. One wonder CD could have told hair a sort. Hair is pretty. So she wanted the crime das premeditated and Nick is immoral. Metallica song selling Tim to film a confrontation with Shanann. He was under pressure from Nick. QTO wants a husband no matter the cost and got a psycho under her tum, parentheses, knickers. I think you are implying that one of the Nicks is involved in the murders, going into the conspiracy theory that Chris did not act alone. But I'm going to need a lot of clarification on if you want me to elaborate. But thanks for the comment. I appreciate you are looking at a crime from all different angles. That's what everyone needs to do, is look at it from all different angles in all considerations. Okay, Janet Phillips said, that's what I thought too, was that these officers can totally keep a poker face when the suspect is totally bullshitting. Yeah, and that's the great thing, is that it's justified. Their deception is justifiable deceit. And that's why it's okay for them to do it, and you're actually rooting them on. It's kind of like Kit Boga, the scam baiter. He lies as much as the scammers that he's lying to, but he's doing it to save innocent people from getting scammed and to make it harder for the scammers to steal money from people. And that's what these FBI interrogators are playing with people's lives when they do it, so the stakes are even higher. But I get similar vibes from these interrogators that I get from watching Kit Boga, the scam baiter. And then the quieter you become, the more you 1198 left a very long, very nice comment, but I replied to it, so check it out if you're interested. And next, M. Lamana 5601 said, what I find disturbing, and so much of this is disturbing, is that he gave Shanann the oxy. Yeah, that's when I learned about that, that's when I just finally gave up on viewing Chris as a normal man, because that shows it was premeditated, which goes against the hours of bullshit story that he came up with, where you're like, what's this guy talking about? Where it was spur of the moment and she sent him into a rage. That was the last straw to prove that it was premeditated and not actually caused by Shanann. It was just Chris being an immature, mentally, emotionally baby, a mentally, emotionally baby who doesn't know how to use words good. But anyway, moving on. Not because of the act itself, though that is heinous enough, but because of the implications to be drawn. Why try and make her abort if already having the plan to kill her? He said he did it because if she lost the baby, the separation would be easier. So if it had worked, would he have killed them? When he found out it didn't work, did he just decide then to cut off the cuff that he'd do it? Did he have the murder as a backup plan? I think he had the murder planned anyway. And the giving her the oxy to make her miscarry before actually murdering the whole family, I think that goes into how they were both playing this game, meaning Chris and the mistress. They were playing this game of like, remember, hey, you want to come over to my house and check my macros? Yeah, I'll come to your house and check your macros, and that's all we're going to do. It's that game they were playing of, we're fooling everyone. And they were also playing that game to each other. Like, we're not really doing anything wrong, but we kind of are doing everything wrong. But everyone thinks we're still good people not doing anything wrong because we're fooling everybody. But they also played that game against each other, where Chris was playing the game of we're getting separated, and the mistress was playing the game of I don't know anything, even though no grown woman who is able to hold down a job, make car payments, find her way back to the same door that she left in the morning, would also be so stupid that she wouldn't go and check the social media of Chris and everyone in his life when she's banging him. Like Dr. Phil had a great rant for his podcast, The Devil Beside Me. I didn't put that in my recommendations because I think I just hadn't come across it yet. But it is his 5-part podcast covering the Watts family crime is it's worth a listen if you haven't yet. He gets a few details wrong, like calling Chris tall and handsome. Ugh. But anyway, it's other than that, it's a good one. He's a great storyteller. But anyway, it's Chris, I think, naively, because of his superiority complex, where it's actually a disorder in his brain where he thinks he's fooling everyone. He actually was going along with the belief that the mistress really didn't know Shanann was pregnant, wasn't looking into their social media, and thought that he had everyone fooled, including the mistress. And the mistress was playing that game. I don't know anything. We're not doing anything wrong, but we're kind of bad people, but we're secretly talking to each other that we know we're doing something wrong. But on the surface, we're not doing anything wrong. We're just hanging out. I'm just checking your macros at your house and nothing else. We're not violating any sort of code of honor. So that's what it was. It was him maintaining that fantasy that he wanted to give the mistress her first son. He wanted his first son to be through the mistress. And the only way to maintain that fantasy was to keep the fantasy going that the mistress didn't really know that Shanann was pregnant and that it was going to be a boy. So he was protecting that fantasy. And he would have, I guess there's a small chance that he wouldn't have gone through with the murders, but I think he would have, based on everything I've seen of him, he would have gone through with the murders anyway. And like I said, the oxy was just to protect the fantasy before freeing up his life and starting the new life with the murders. So good one, M. Lamanna. And then M. Lamanna continues with another comment. Again, the Watts family who believes the first confession, even that first confession, with what he did confess, he'd be gone for life anyhow. Yeah, because his family, his murdering Shanann because she murdered the kids, not calling 911, that story is something that obviously he just came up with on the spot because FBI agent Tammy Lee suggested it. And he said, oh, that's a perfect way to get out of this interrogation because that's what they want to hear. I'll tell them what they want to hear. And oh, my family would love to hear that. And then he found out the hard way that his family was just disappointed with it because now they realized what Chris didn't think of was that he's going to prison. Now he's going to go to prison because he hadn't thought that far ahead because he was coming up with it on the spot. And M. Lamanna's third comment is ultimately the fact CW could even tell the first BS confession without breaking down, even describing the acts he confesses to doing. Yeah, that goes into the category of the details that caught me off guard of, wow, this guy's just a total piece of garbage. I can't believe I fell for that prison interview where the FBI was talking to him like he was a friend and he really was a special case who really did regret doing it, and Chris was playing the role, even though this kind of doesn't make sense to me. They're all acting like he's this thing, but some things aren't making sense. Like, where's the part where he tells the story? Wouldn't he be telling his wife and kids' stories more and being more sympathetic to their point of view if he really was this guy with all the grief that regretted doing it? But he's not doing that, so... And then it made sense and was disgusting to see details like this, that he just pulls this confession out of this excuse for the first confession where he murdered Shanann out of his ass and has no real guilt of doing it. And then he finally only shows any remorse is when he realizes from what his dad does is that his dad says, oh, we're going to get a lawyer, see what we can do. And Chris is like, oh, crap. I forgot I would need a lawyer because I'm going to go to prison. Thanks for the comments, M. Lamanna. Chris Kramer says, I came for the Watts impersonation. LOL, there's nothing like this case. Yeah, there's been many family annihilators, but never captured on body cam play out like a horrific real soap opera. I agree that that's what's special about this case. There have been many family annihilators who probably were just as much of a skittering little half weasel that Chris was. It just wasn't caught. There's no footage. All you have at best is 20 years later, one of the cops that worked on the case doing an interview about it where they just take a few sound bites and you're left to wonder how it really played out. And Chris Kramer continues by saying, plus it happened on my birthday. There's something very strange about Colorado. I've never done an in-depth look at Colorado, like a lot of weird crimes seem to come out there. It's almost like Florida, the Florida man myth. So many cases start with Florida man, and it's a very bizarre case. The thing that's weird to me about Colorado that I suspect is the elevation. It's, the mile high state, the mile high city. Maybe that lack of oxygen is doing something to the brain functions up there. Or it could just be that it appears that way. Nah. I think because I've been talking for 15 minutes now, I'm starting to get my own sense of Colorado where I just spaced out because I'm getting lightheaded from a lack of oxygen to my brain. So maybe I just proved that it really is oxygen deprivation in that elevated state leading to all these crimes where you're like, why would they do that? Okay, 38 Maddie had one comment that I already replied to, so I'll skip that. 38 Maddie had another comment. Yes, I have thought that the only way he could do this to his kids is because not only did he not love them, he hated them. And yes, for dumb reasons like over Oreo eating. All the reasons we've gone into with his stunted emotional growth. As a later comment would say, he probably stopped growing mentally and emotionally at the age of 2 or 3, although he still continued to grow with his ability to take in and memorize information. He just didn't know what to do with that information because his human intelligence was so low. And even though he portrayed it as a joke, he legitimately did blame his own choice to eat Oreos on the fact that Cece was in Shanann's womb and making Shanann hungry. As stupid as that sounds, that's how he justified it in his brain, his dysfunctional brain. Cheryl Johnson, 579, said, "You're right, LOL. Bet he does smell good. Tolerance for a murderer." I'm not sure why you ended the sentence with tolerance for a murderer, but I imagine he must have smelled good rather than bad for Chris to want to stay in there for so long with him. And Graham even made that comment of Chris, like, so it doesn't matter if you go to work without a shower. Like, Graham must shower every day because he has to use that good smell he uses to, you get that whiff of someone and you like being around them. And conversely, if someone stinks, you want to be away from them regardless of their personality. I think we'll have to end it there because it's getting long, and the next comment from DB2637 is long. So,